Welcome to Hip to the Scene, talking music, videos, and everything in between.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Andy Gessner, welcoming you to Hip to the Scene, where every episode we lean on world experts. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the experts out there that you can trust to help answer a question we know for sure talented creatives all over the world, just like yourself, are needing to have answered. Our guest today is Jesse Cannon. Jesse Cannon is a record producer, a mastering engineer, a podcast producer. He's also the host of Atlantic Records Inside the Album. What's more, ladies and gentlemen, he is a prolific author. Yes, indeed, a prolific author. His best-selling books include Processing Creativity, the tools, practices, and habits used to make music you're happy with. Let me guess, you're already salivating to get that book. And the absolute guide for Indie Nation, a remarkable book taught in over a dozen universities. Yes, indeed. Get More Fans, the DIY Guide to the New Music Business is a book you must purchase. If it's being taught in over a dozen universities, you got to figure that this guest on Hip to the Scene is genuinely hip to the scene, everybody. And today's question, we know it's a question you need answered. It is simple. How can I go from 0 to 10,000 fans in a world torn asunder in this current scenario? Let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, most of the creatives out there, they're scratching their head, they're feeling anxious, they're not sure what to do, they're looking at the situation glass half empty. And who better to answer the question, how can I go from 0 to 10,000 fans during this current scenario, than the man who wrote the book? Jesse, welcome to Hip to the Scene.
Hey, Andy, thanks so much for having me. I'm really psyched to do this.
Likewise, we've been talking about it here for a long time. And yes, there are literally dozens, if not hundreds of spokes in the wheel of that question poised to you. Folks, you should know Jesse Cannon, he lives it, breathes it, sweats it. It's all he does is helping creatives just move the needle. And Jesse, I realize there's got to be an elevator pitch in your world when people are like, hey, what are you going to bring to the table? What sage wisdom and advice are you going to give me? And as a super fan of Moose Formation, which I neglected to mention, Moose Formation is just the most incredible portal for all the things you need to know to really make sure your music career is sizzling. So let's start with something that you and I have known for many decades. Constant, sustained promotion, CSP.
So I think that this is the concept that everybody knows they need to do, but then makes excuses that they don't have to do. And so I go back and forth between calling it constant and consistent sustained promotion, mostly because I just mess it up. But what I think this really is mostly about is that when you look at the music acts that you see grab your attention and you go, oh, I need to check that person out. It's because you're consistently seeing their name in various different places. So with that, what I instruct artists to do, and it's the biggest thing that I talk about all day, is that you need to have a content schedule, which is that you are putting out a new single, because as we know, the biggest music marketing tool is music itself and having a good song, and then content around it. So what I advise is that every 2 weeks, you're going to put out a different video for it. One of them is going to be a stream of your song with a single screen. Another one of them is going to be a lyric video, and then another is a music video, and then maybe another is an alternate version. So that way, every 2 weeks, people are being reminded of your music, and they also see that you take it seriously. People are inherently drawn to artists that they see that are commanding attention and are taking what they do seriously. When you see somebody who just puts out a single every once in a while when they feel like it, or they put out an album and then they hear about it for a month, there's no reason to pay attention, because they're not going to be what music is for people, which is two different things. The most underestimated thing people talk about with music is it's a mood changing drug. When you want to feel a different way, you put on music, and people are by nature addicts, and people are going to want things that are going to regularly give them a fix. And then secondly, the way human beings bond with one another is by talking about things that are interesting to them. And when you're doing interesting things and have stuff to actually talk about and have conversation pieces and content that's actually worth discussing with somebody else, you become something that somebody goes on their mind and talks to other people about it. And then they make deeper friendships with the people who they bond with about this. This all happens because of the consistent, sustained promotion being a constant engagement thing for you. And that's the main reason why you need to have a lot of content banked. I tell everybody to have 3 to 6 songs already done before you start doing your promotion, so you're always working on the next ones that are going to come out ahead of time, and so that you can remain consistent with this promotion. And I feel like I just went on a long rant because the caffeine's kicking in.
That's all good. So what you are saying, sir, is that an idiot creative with a plan is going to do much, much better than a genius creative without one.
This is actually a good balance you just discussed, because one of the things people like you and me who've been doing this to see is, like, we see these truly brilliant artists, but the problem is when they're fleeting and unorganized, and creative people do have a tendency to be unorganized, which is why they let them get away with the horrible managers they deal with, because those people who are organized are an essential tool to what actually does it. And it's like a shame, but like when you get to be our age, a lot of people who had a lot of talent, who were really good at things, but because they were so unorganized and didn't do that one ingredient that's super, like, this ingredient is really, really important piece of the puzzle. And when they don't do it, it doesn't go very well for them. And then they're sitting around regretting that they didn't do it 10 years later when they realize that's what they should have done.
Yes, sir. It is truly all about being ready for your opportunities when they come. And regrettably, lots of the most talented creatives out there in Indie Nation, they have real trouble wrapping their heads around the very fact that they are a public figure. My friends, if you're not for yourself, who will be?
It's true.
So, okay, you get it. I get it. Musicians would much prefer to be left alone to create. And regrettably, they would prefer to have other people do this stuff. But when it comes to making an impact and being eventful, don't lean on other people. Tell them, Jesse, step up. Step up like the artist you are.
So I think one of the biggest misconceptions musicians often have, and you and I have both gotten to work with some of the biggest musicians at their early days, and what you see is a lot of people have the misconception that like, oh, well, I'm just going to meet some genius manager and they'll tell me what to do. It's like, nah, you have to be the person who's doing research, getting inspired, and helping come up with those ideas. Sure, you will get introduced to video directors, creative directors, and other people who can help bring out your vision and help pile on the ideas. But the thing we see over and over again with people who really do well in music is that when you're expressing a new, authentic point of view that's your own, that's the main ingredient. It's like it has to line up with who you are. Somebody can't make you, and so many people have that dumb thing like, oh, this person was made by the major label machine. They're an industry plant. It's like, that is an exception among exceptions and pretty much usually a myth. The people who do best with this are creating from an authentic place of things they like and things they want to see in the world. And they're having other people help them get there. But the big part of it all is what they've brought to the table, and then people are iterating upon that.
Okie dokie, you have an excellent video amongst the dozens of videos that everyone watching this transmission needs to go check out. You talk about going down a rabbit hole, hours upon hours, sage wisdom coming out of every orifice of this gentleman. So you talk about what talented artists and bands can be doing during lockdown while all these great bands and artists are getting all angst filled. Man, oh man, that video is killer because you basically outline what you can be doing right now instead of folding up like a cheap lawn chair.
Yeah. So it's so funny, the podcast I was doing just this morning, it's like, it was with a bunch of big artists who used to be touring that, they get scared they're never going to tour again. But my thing is, we've now are far enough into this now that we're almost a year into the Trump virus, that we've seen so many artists have built themselves up by understanding what the things that are exploitable are during this. So when I say exploitable, what I like to say is in hacking technology, you talk about exploits or things that you can push through the system and get a lot of growth out of. So with musicians and promotion, that is right now that since people can't do live shows, you're able to do a lot of cool things from a bedroom and people are willing to accept a little less production value these days. So what that means is DIY music videos now can go further because just about no one's able to do a big budget thing. So we're all accepting of smaller things. Bonding with other people. So like the big thing I talk about is like collaborations. Now collaborations can be everything from doing a track with somebody else onto just when you find another cool musician that's around the same size as you, go on Instagram Live and get to know each other, and both of your fans will be alerted, play each other's songs to each other and talk about them afterwards and introduce each other to each other's fan base. There are so many things we can be doing right now. One of the big things I talk about is, we all know Spotify is the greatest thing right now that offers the opportunity to go put very little effort in and get a lot of fans out of. Making your own artist playlists of other artists that are smaller like you, and then tagging them on social media and then having their fans hear you and their songs. That is one of the easiest ways that you could be promoting yourself in lockdown that really, really effectively works right now. There's so much that could be done. And like, I could honestly just keep making video after video because like I'm at the point where my brain doesn't even process that we're going to have live shows ever again because I never leave these four walls that I'm in right now. And the real thing is finding your community. And this is a thing I talk about all the time, which is that some of the best time spent you could be doing is scouring Bandcamp tags, SoundCloud tags. The fans also like on Spotify, and finding the other artists who do what you do and who are small and aspiring and who do good stuff and teaming up with them, talking with them, seeing if you guys can come up with cool things to do together, whether that's live streams where you put on a pre-recorded video of you playing, then them playing. Finding all that stuff to do together is like literally the most crucial thing right now, because you're finding effective ways to target your ideal audience. When that artist is similar to you, all their fans already are susceptible to liking you because they like an artist that's similar to you and small. So introducing yourself to those fans, even though it may not be many, you do that 5, 10 times, you could have gained a lot of fans by then.
You know, we come from the old school where community was job one. Bands used to ask me back in the 80s and 90s, well, how do you do it? I said, well, we kept going to all the shows of the bands that we really dug and that we wanted to play with. And if we wanted to go to New Haven, we'd become friends with Miracle Legion and we'd play with them up there and we'd have them down here. Or if it was Boston, we'd get with Salem 66. We'd play with them at Storyville, and then they'd play with us at the Court Tavern.
Yep.
I remember Yo La Tengo. We did a gig swap where we played with them at the Court Tavern in New Brunswick, and they had us open for them at Maxwell's. Community, ladies and gentlemen, listen to what Jesse Cannon is saying. Now, I get it when you hear the word community, you crumble. You crumble because it involves interaction and engagement and actually making eye contact. Now we get it. There's a pandemic going on, but still, you're going to want to use technology. Still want to make eye contact with people. So, Jesse, you're a guy. You know, most of the human family get 2 AA batteries for their life journey. You, sir, got 6D batteries, like used to be in my cassette boombox.
Yes. I was like, what, I used to have 6D? Oh yes, boom boxes. Yeah.
Yes, indeedy. So obviously your most precious commodity is time. And we get it, ladies and gentlemen, your most precious commodity is time. So Jesse, please share with this audience MEAR. That is minimum estimated effort required.
Yes, I'm glad you remembered what it was, because I don't think I was going to remember the exact thing. So thank you very much for not embarrassing me with that. So what this is we all look at, let's say we have to make a music video. We're like, okay, well, here's the bare minimum I have to do. And that's what most artists shoot for, is like, well, I just need to go to a playground, get dressed up in some new clothes and wrap my song into the camera. So what I say is like really determining what the minimum effort required is and then going way far past it is literally one of those things you see most people do. There's this great Scott Galloway quote, and if people are not familiar with him, he's probably the smartest entrepreneurial business person. He teaches at NYU, but he says, strategy is doing what your competition isn't willing to do. And I find that to be while a little extreme, to be, though, a very, very realistic, maybe realistic's not the word. It is the thought that people should have as much as possible. Is like when you're working on your song, you know, the effort to go, you know, I was just mastering an amazing record from this artist called Mags. And it was like the thing of like, man, this guy mixed these songs. These are some of the best mixes I've heard in my years mastering. And, you know, it's like that funny thing of he went back and kept remixing one of them 4 times. And he just goes so much further than everybody else is willing to go. And that's part of the thing is like, you can't just do the minimum effort required. You need to go way beyond it and pick something that'll work in. So for example, you know, just doing your photo shoot going, I'm going to have 12 different pictures. Sure, that's going to be great for Instagram content. But what would go way further than that is coming up with a really good video scenario, getting the video, getting still photos from that, and figuring out how it ties in as well as possible with the emotion of your song. That's way more effort than most people put in. And the people who do that tend to be way more rewarded for it, as long as they use the consistent, sustained promotion at the end to make sure people actually notice it.
Yes, sir. Boris Becker once said, he was asked how he won all the Grand Slams, and he just thought from, he said, well, the way I figure it, when you're not practicing, someone else is.
I like that a lot.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, you got to realize it is a crowded landscape out there. I'm talking seriously crowded, like Times Square, New Year's Eve, 2019
I
crowd.
was about to say any year except this year.
So, yes, when you're not practicing, someone else is. And we've seen over the years that we've been ensconced in our little worlds that for a lot of people, man, when the going gets tough, they throw up their hands, man. This business is not for the weak of heart. Either you come down to the elbow thrashing levels of reality here, or you're going to be SOL.
That's correct.
All right. So, though I think we have a pretty well seasoned audience here, can we just talk about a couple don'ts?
Sure.
Okay. Number one, don't buy fake stuff.
No. Buying playlists, buying listens, you know, the number one thing I feel like I have to do deprogramming with musicians is thinking that their metrics are what matters, and that people are going to just see that 200,000 videos, and they forget that anybody in this business already knows that those can be bought. What they want to see is you doing smart things and working hard, and that people are reacting to your songs. But if it's 1,000 people who are generally reacting to your songs well, and they see that you've got something, they're going to know that if they just do a little bit more. And people also forget that most of the time with many managers is they don't say yes right away, or the label say yes right away. They keep an eye on you for a minute. And if you're just buying fake stuff, they're going to be able to see that all your listens are in Guadalajara in Indonesia, and it's not accurate.
Right. I would contend that the last thing you want to do as a creative is come across not authentic and not genuine. Talk about a day ruiner for that artist or band.
Well, and never mind now that Spotify is throwing people off who are buying bots, and YouTube for years has cracked down on bots. So you're doing yourself no favors with that.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something that really grinds my gears. My inbox is full of fake, phony frauds encouraging Indie Nation to come be a part of their masterclass. Oh my gosh, you're going to learn all you need to know to become an international phenomenon. And except for very few rare exceptions, please tell our viewing and listening audience, run the other way.
Yes. 99.9% of the people who are doing these things. And like yesterday, I was on a thread where somebody was showing me somebody's going to give you a lifetime mentorship for $4,000, and all of these things. First, never give your money to anybody you haven't gotten references for and you can't see a clear track record. But second, there's an unfortunate saying that if you want to make money in music, it's made by capitalizing on the dreams of musicians. Way too many people have heard that saying, and no, it's true. It's a very sad thing that this is what people are so passionate about. And there's so many people who go, cool, I can read 4 books that these people aren't going to read, and I'll do it. And I get alerted to these people all the time because people send me and say, hey, this person is just literally plagiarizing your book. Are you going to do something about this? And it's really sad. These people, I know that we're in a anything goes world now, but we have to remember, everybody reads this Russell Brunson Expert Secrets book, and then they learn how to take advantage of people for money and basically read 5-10 books and call themselves an expert. And the biggest problem I find with this, and I find with a lot of things, is human psychology is that when we buy things like this and we do things like this, is we think the problem is taken care of. And then we think that everything's going to work out. And then when it doesn't, we go, oh, cool, I just lost a year of my life. And if you put yourself into the right things, there's so much free information out here, like what you're doing and I'm doing, that is really great information from people who've actually really done it, that you don't need to pay for it. Yes, sometimes, these people have a track record and they've done some things, but like the majority of people who are charging for it are not putting out as good information that is just out right here on YouTube.
No truer words have ever been said. And yes, sir, one of the biggest issues I have with these artists is that there are so many of these people out there. And I would think that we have a pretty knowledgeable listenership and audience here, but I can't believe it. I see it all the time. People hire someone to help them, never check what other people have to say about them. They don't check who have they worked with. I mean, show me who you've worked with, show me who you walk with, and I'll show you who you are. And these people get snookered, bamboozled. Mm-hmm. It's terrible, Jesse. You and
it's terrible. Well, and the worst thing is we have to remember, music is not just oh, I did some work. It's doing the right work. Yes, talking to fans on Instagram is good work, but if that's all you do instead of writing songs, that's bad work. And if you go to this instead of doing effective things, you're wasting that money that you could have spent on a music video or promoting yourself and getting out there. You're spending it on somebody who's just telling you really obvious things that are not actual secrets that are out in the world already.
If you can take one thing away from this transmission, ladies and gentlemen, two people here in the Great Garden State, we live by this adage: give of yourself ungrudgingly, and don't ask for a whole lot in return. It will come back to you tenfold.
That is correct.
That saying is going to replace the one you just mentioned, that no one ever went broke underestimating the stupidity of creatives in indie nation.
It's true. That's much better.
Cool. Well, folks, I have to ask this question because the gentleman who is the guest today on Hip to the Scene helped Robert Smith. Now, we're not talking the Robert Smith that lives down the road from you. We're talking the real, genuine, authentic Mr. Cure Robert Smith. So if you're wondering, hey, is this guy Jesse Cannon the real deal? Jesse, you and I both know that a legendary, iconic figure like Robert Smith wouldn't be working with Jesse Cannon unless he did his research and due diligence.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work with on a Cure record years ago, and yeah, I mean, I always say it was the greatest experience of my life, because Robert is the smartest, funniest, most interesting, kind, just amazing to be around person. But he also is an incredibly well-researched person who does not make decisions without knowing what he's talking about. And he truly, one of the things I like to focus on and the advice I give is I've been lucky enough to be around and observe a lot of people who've done this at a very high level. And, that man, one of the biggest groups of all time, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the whole thing. It's like when it's time for him to do something, he really, really looks at all the options, all the paths, and makes sure he's getting good advice from smart people. And then he makes a move. And he honestly delays decisions till he feels that way. And that could be a bad thing when you're having to move fast. He doesn't have to move so fast these days now. But, there's a totally realistic thing that one of the skills musicians need to do most is determine what the good advice is and act on it effectively. And my God, he was a master class in that.
I'm curious, when Transit and Man Overboard came to you and said, Jesse Cannon, we want you to be our manager, I'm betting the first thing you said to both of them was, no way, Jose.
Yeah, you're correct. I turned down both of them about 6 times. What I would do is I'd say, look, I'm not going to manage you, but you should do these 6 things. And, you know, it's a funny thing. Like right now I'm working on a audio documentary of Vagrant Records. And you keep hearing the same thing is that, you know, they would say, you know, if I should say Vagrant also runs Hard 8 Management, which has had some of the biggest acts. They help break Dashboard Confessional and tons of others. And they did the same thing. And I didn't do it knowing other people did it. I just knew that I didn't want to work with people who weren't making progress and working hard. So with Man Overboard and Transit, I'd be like, do these 3 things. This is what's the next thing coming up for you is you guys got to do this stage of the promotion. And then they do it. I'd go, okay, maybe I should reconsider. And, you know, I kept saying no. And that was the thing. And I did that with literally every group I ever managed, as I said no numerous times. And then when I saw that they were really actually dedicated and what we were doing was catching on, I'd say yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am quite certain you have enjoyed the program up until this point, and I'd be remiss not encouraging you to just go to your Google search bar, Moose Formation. That is M-U-S, Moose, FORMATION.com. Jesse's a busy guy, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't have to make these videos, but he does because he, like myself, are sick of the fake, phony frauds, liars, fakers, fairy tale makers out there treating the best of the best very poorly. It's terrible. It's horrible.
It is.
So one thing for certain, when you watch a Jesse Cannon video, you won't be surprised to see literally dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of comments. People like, Jesse, you are the man. And what's remarkable is that if you ask Jesse Cannon a question, now you probably think, you're not going to get it. He answers every single question. How in the HE double hockey sticks do you do that, sir?
I'm going to be very honest with you because it's a silly answer, but it really is most of the time on the toilet.
Okay, all good.
I just waste no time within the day. It's on the toilet. It's while I'm waiting for the computer to restart, you know, things like that. Just pick it up while I'm walking to the place where I get my fried chicken sandwich, you know, just thumbing through that.
Well, everybody, I just want to thank Jesse for taking time out of his busy day to join us here on Hip to the Scene. And I should tell you, if you're loving this content, I'm going to do a Jesse here. If you're loving this content, tell your friends, tell your bandmates, tell your family, tell the bands that you like, hey, not for nothing, I found this guy, Jesse Cannon. I really do think that if you were to go check him out, you'd see a big uptick in your musical career. If you're liking it, you should comment and like and subscribe, because our whole goal here is to answer the questions that the best and most talented creatives all across the world are looking to get answered. And here at Hip to the Scene, you can rest assured we're going to be bringing nothing but the top shelf world-class experts to share with you what you need to be doing here. DIY, going from 0 to 10,000 fans in the new music industry. Jesse, thank you for joining us.
It was my pleasure, and you keep doing the great work you do.
All right. Well, you know, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life.
This is true.
So I'm the most blessed guy on the planet. So Moose Formation, go check Jesse out. I think you will be very, very happy that you have discovered this incredible human being. So until next time, on Hip to the Scene, I will be giving you the answer to the trivia question we didn't ask. Are you ready, Jesse?
Sure.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
I'm at a loss.
It's okay. The actual question will be in the YouTube description.
Nice.
All right, Jesse, you get back to fighting the good fight. Stay going strong. We very much appreciate your time today on Hip to the Scene.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. Stay well and stay sanitized. All right, peace.